Welcome to the Flaman Connect podcast, a podcast focused on the individual pieces that make up the larger community of people together, doing what's right and making a difference. Today's hosts, we have myself, Trevor Grinde, Regan Kunz, and Mitch Flaman.
You know, I find that my musical taste, I've kind of turned into my father. Like, I have Sirius Radio, and it's on Prime Country probably 70% of the time.
But be like that. Okay, I don't care what genre of music you listen to, because I'm all over the map. I'll listen to absolutely everything. But 90s country was a time to be alive. Like, that's when I think, before that, I'm not saying like country music wasn't good. It was just different. But there was something about 90s country that brought it into like pop culture when you started getting your Garth Brooks and Shania Twains and you're like...
I'll narrow it down. I think 85 through 95. That is the window.
Yeah, it started... Yeah. So the later part of the 90s, it started getting to...
poppy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
When you started getting into ones like Big and Rich and Gretchen Wilson, where they just pushed it out of country, I felt.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really country anymore.
I actually feel like, and for the last, 5 years or so now, because I'd still say country music's probably my most listened to genre outside of news talk radio. Yeah. But for the last 5 years or more, I feel like music, like country music's just been awful. And it's all just bro country stuff that I don't, whatever. It is what it is. It's what's mainstream now. But I feel like it's finally coming back. Like, it's finally, 5 years ago, some of these guys were out there, but they're finally just started making another name again. And it's getting back to what country music was about and when it wasn't about mainstream stuff.
My 13-year-old still tells me when we're riding in the trucks, why is every country song either about drinking or losing a loved one? And honestly, that's the litmus test. Pretty much every song is about drinking.
You can add trucks in there too.
Yeah, sometimes.
But it's neat now to hear songs that have nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
You should look this up. There's a guy named Nate Smith. He's got a funny story too. I'll tell you in a sec. His house burned. He went to Nashville and wasn't very good. So he's a country singer and went to Nashville and got sent home. He's from California, I think. His house burnt down. And then so he wrote a song about his house burning down, and it went massive on TikTok. And now he's back in Nashville. But he's got a song called Raised Up. And you should listen to it because it's about music. It's about how he was raised, but then he takes all the music that he listened to when he was raised and he turns it up. It's a super neat play on words, and it has nothing to do with trucks, and it has nothing to do with a relationship. It's a cool song. Yeah. And Luke Combs is another guy that I think he writes most of his stuff too. Yep. Super talented guy and he dabbles on the line of some mainstream things. I think maybe because you have to, but he's so talented and he sings songs about all sorts of stuff that are not typical country songs.
But it's rural stuff, right?
Yes.
There's a tie into country there, right?
Yeah.
Chris Stapleton is another, we talked about him, fantastic musician, right? Really good songwriter. Tyler Childers is another one. Coulter Wall.
Yeah.
There is some more of I'll call it outlaw country that I kind of lean towards, if you're watching Yellowstone and stuff.
You probably,
like that.
exactly. You probably lean to it more now because A, Yellowstone, but B, because it's original.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the original question was, would you pay $150? And I haven't even looked at the ticket prices. I assume it's in that range to go see Kiss.
I would, absolutely. Because I don't think you're going to get another, if you haven't especially, I don't think you're going to get another chance to do it, or not many more. The only thing that's going to suck is, I've seen Motley Crue lots.
Yeah.
And it's always their last concert that you go see. And Vince Neil is just getting worse and worse and worse. It's almost awful to go watch, but you still end up having a good time. But the talent of the concert isn't there, and the tickets are still typically expensive. So,
Pop quiz. A barn was built in 1915 that was said to be the largest in North America. Near which present-day community was it located?
McCreary, Manitoba, Leader, Saskatchewan, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, Cochrane, Alberta, Lacombe, Alberta.
Cochrane, Alberta, final answer.
He sounds extremely confident.
I'm not. Just I've driven through most of those other towns and haven't seen the biggest barn. So
I'll take the Saskatchewan option and go Leader, but I have absolutely no idea.
There's two Saskatchewan options. There was Leader and Moose Jaw. But
Sorry, I'll take Leader. So
Leader. Okay, so it was built by the Smith family, and it was built near the South Saskatchewan River.
Okay,
just west of Leader.
There you
go.
go.
Well done.
Boom.
Yeah,
just west of Leader.
So it was built by William T. Horseshoe Smith. The barn was 400 feet long, 128 feet wide. It took a crew of 100 men 5 months to complete the project.
Holy moly. Is it still standing today?
Only the foundation remains. Yep.
A lot of barns burnt down due to electrical issues and hay in there, and like a lot. That's my first talk about core memories.
Yeah.
It's one of my first memories being on the farm. I must have been 4 or 5 years old watching the barn burn down. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Was the only one in the yard at that time that thought it was the coolest thing ever.
And the ones that lasted any amount of time started to get a bit of a lean on them after a while, and then.
So, fun fact: at the original Flaman sales site in Southie, Saskatchewan, where I grew up, there was an old brick house that my grandpa and so my dad and all his siblings grew up in, and then they added a office onto the side of that, just a little addition onto the side of the house, and there was a big red barn in the middle of the yard because it was grandpa's farm, and in the hayloft of that barn is where we kept a bunch of air seeder hose and stuff like that. And they had my brother and I convinced that they were big snakes. There was big anaconda snakes up there for a big part of our childhood so that we wouldn't go in the hayloft.
How long did that barn last? And
we
what
tore
happened
it down in 1997 when we built the current Flaman sales dealership there right now.
So that's where it was, right there?
It was right there.
Oh,
we ripped it down. And then where that office sits is where, actually, if you go on the Flaman homepage, there's a picture. It's in the video. It's the video that rolls up. And the very first few seconds of that, there's a old farmyard, it's a black and white photo. And then it morphs into the existing one. And I bet if you look close, there's a barn in there, and then it's now the building. That's the barn with the big anacondas in it.
Did they flush the snakes out before the barn went down?
I wonder.
Okay, pop quiz. Which prairie community is considered the home of Canadian 4-H? Roblin, Manitoba, Roland, Manitoba, Redvers, Saskatchewan, Rockland, Saskatchewan, Red Deer, Alberta. Notice that all the towns start with R, so that's a hint.
That's pushing dad joke material.
No doubt.
Say it again.
Which prairie community is considered to be the home of Canadian 4-H?
Rockland.
I'll go with Red Deer.
You should start copying me, Reg, because I'm on fire. Whatever I say, you should say what I say.
Eventually, you're going to get one wrong.
I think I got this one wrong.
Okay, so 4-H in Canada started in Roland, Manitoba. The community was the site of the first meeting of the Boys and Girls Club, which later became 4-H in 1913. Roland even has a 4-H museum with memorabilia from throughout Canada and the United States.
Anybody here a 4-H kid from back in the day? No.
Our kids, we took our kids to 4-H. We had 4-H, but I myself was never in.
4-H was a good program growing up, but it's kind of evolved now to being more about cows and animals now than it was when we just had local guys would teach us. We took a small engines course. We took an outdoors course. I grew a little plot one year, like a 3-acre plot, and that everybody in the class did. We grew wheat.
Okay.
And then I took a part of that plot and I made a sheath that was in the agribition. It was just a good thing to do.
So do you remember what the 4-H's stand for?
I do. Oh, guys, I got this.
Hands,
Red, actually, yep.
heart,
Yeah.
something health.
So
Something
that's what I would
Hands,
say.
heart,
And I'm semi-confident it's head. Hands, heart, head, and health. Is that right? Hands, heart. So I'm saying with you. I would have got 75% here for sure.
So yeah, head. Yeah.
Is it head?
Yeah.
I would have got Reg. I would have got 100%.
You would have.
Again,
You
yeah.
would have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Follow you.
Yeah, so the 4-H pledge is I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to the largest service, my health for better living, for my club, community, and my country.
Yeah. So-
Nice.
and the motto was learn to do by doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. Do by doing.
Tommy Schmidt was in 4-H, and I always thought that was cool. And he always went to Hagerbition and had sweet stuff because he was a real farm kid. I was a part farm kid.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about the 4-H program is the public speaking part of it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as all the kids hate it. Like,
Yeah.
it's the worst thing ever. But it's a skill that you don't pick up anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's useful.
Yes.
No matter what kind of a job you pick up.
Great experience.
Was it a 4-H thing when you brought your kids to work and I sat down with them? That speaking thing?
Might have been.
Do you remember that?
Can't remember. Yeah, 'cause I think it was. Yeah,
I think it was 4-H related.
I think so.
Yeah, that is a cool skill to get. And at 4-H, so there's what's weird to me. 4-H was always about animals to me. And then you're talking about doing small engine stuff and planting crops. And you're talking about doing public speaking. I think I might have been a little off on what I actually thought 4-H was. I wasn't in 4-H.
It really depends on your club and who was organizing it. And
So for someone that's a foreigner, how do you describe 4-H in one sentence?
Learn to do by doing.
yeah, it's
really.
it's an egg-based kids club, basically, that will teach you different life skills and give you projects to take on and learn how to do by actually doing the project.
And how you can get high school credit for it as well. So what you do is you pick your project, you have to follow it through to completion, and then do a report on it, basically, and then you can get your 4-H or your high school credit for it, as well as completing the 4-H course as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, projects can be anything from like animal stuff to quilting to archery to small engine to any. And if there is like a project you want to do that doesn't already exist in 4-H, as long as you have a leader to put together a guideline and stuff, that you can create one that doesn't exist already. So it's actually pretty neat.
No, I was very thankful, and now that I'm an adult, very glad that I was a part of that. I actually went to 4-H camp one year. I don't recall if we did any 4-H stuff when we were there, but it was all 4-H kids. I believe it was at Diefenbaker, but I was like 7, 8, 9 years.
Well, and they do other like extracurricular types, like they'll have a ski day,
Yep.
and they'll have like leadership conferences, and they'll do a curling thing, like
Yep.
provincial curling, and so they do all kinds of fun stuff. So
It's awesome.
it's time for Now You Know. It's the part of the program where we talk to people, experts in their field, various varieties and various areas of farming. And today we're talking with Shaun Gettis, the Vice President of Sales from Flaman. Talk a bit about bin monitoring and why that's important.
Bin monitoring is a massive concern. We've all heard the horror stories of people losing a bin. Just a basic 2406 10,000 bushel bin now can hold, upwards of $200,000 worth of canola. And someone could have drove through a slough bottom and brought in a bunch of kochia or something, and then you can have hot spots in the bin, which is just like a virus in canola. It'll just you'll lose it in no time. So bin monitoring is very important. It's pennies on the bushel to have that live and get alerts to your phone, to control your fan remotely, to make sure, even just give you an indicator that you got to turn that bin or pull a couple loads out. And it's important to have that maintained. It's important to know how it works. And it's the best insurance policy on managing and holding grain that I know out there.
What I like is it's good for a remote bin site. So you can have powered by battery or solar or whatever, and you don't have to have it close to home. So it can be out on a remote site. You can look at it on your phone. You don't have to drive out there, especially in the winter.
You bet. There's cellular based, Wi-Fi based. Most of them are cellular based, as Wi-Fi can be a little sketchy in different places and even across a yard. It all communicates directly to your smart device. There's moisture curves and temperature curves based on the type of commodity that's in the bin, canola versus peas versus wheat. There's all kinds of things you can do to use it as a management tool, even a theft deterrent. If someone starts accessing your bins, you're going to know, because the sensors are going to start changing.
Right. Well, and back to what you said before about using the data of what's going on in your operation to make better management decisions. You don't have to, but if there's opportunity to insert different data and metrics, it gives you the ability to be able to manage it in a way that you couldn't if you didn't have those metrics.
And the security, Mitch. You can lose so much so fast via heated grain, and the security to know that you have a backup.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of great takeaways from this conversation. Thanks a lot, Shaun. We're going to move on to the last segment of our show today, and that's an interview with our special guest.
Our guest today is Rocky. Now, you're from Flaman, Alberta.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I am.
But you don't originate from Alberta.
Nope, Saskatchewan farm boy.
So let's talk about that. Where are you from originally?
Radisson, Saskatchewan.
How long have you been in Alberta for, though?
I've been in Alberta for 29 years.
What took you to Alberta? Because I don't think the average... I shouldn't say that. There was a time where a lot of people from Radisson, I think, ended up in Alberta, and slowly they come back to Saskatchewan. But, so you're from Radisson. Tell us about how you ended up in Alberta.
Well, it's quite a story. Frank Flaman was flying around in his airplane, and I was applying to companies, and my brother Dave says, you should apply to this company called Frank Flaman Sales Limited. And I said, Frank Flaman Sales, who in the heck names a company after their own name? I said, I'm not applying there. So my brother sent my resume in. So I was working in Maidstone for my brother as an electrician. And the next thing you know, Frank decided to fly out in his airplane to meet me. So I'm quite a bit taller than my brother, so I decided I should wear a suit because I'm pretty young, and all you really got is your looks. So
how old are you at this time?
22.
Okay, yeah.
So next thing you know, I decided, well, I better wear a suit. So I'm wearing my brother's suit, except it's about 3 inches too short. So Frank lands in his airplane, and so I'm standing behind my Mustang car trying to hide my pant legs, and he comes over and meets me. I shake his hand. Next thing you know, he's kind of looking at my dress pants. He's like, so what's going on here? And so I kind of told him, and I said, I like to dress up. So for respect for him. And next thing you know, he says, well, we spent about an hour together. He goes, I really like you, so you should come to work in Leduc. So we're in Leduc there in 1993. So I get up the next morning, drive to Leduc. So I leave about 4 in the morning, get to Leduc about 10 to 8. So 10 to 8 in the morning, the next thing you know, I'm sitting there and the doors open at 8 o'clock. So I go in and I'm sitting there, I'm meeting Frank Flaman here. I'm supposed to have a job. And next thing you know, there's another guy sitting beside me. He's waiting for Frank too. I didn't know that Frank slept sometimes at the store. So I learned that pretty quick. So, so the next thing you know, Frank comes downstairs and he says, oh, both you guys come up to my office. So we both go up to his office, and he goes, well, there's 2 of you and there's one job.
And do you know who this guy is, or you've never seen him in your life?
Never seen him in my life. So
where's he from? What's his story?
I don't know.
Still
can't
to
remember.
This day, you don't know.
Can't remember, because all I know is I looked over. I said, well, I can beat this guy, so I'm going to beat this guy, and then I'll get the job. So this other guy lasted about 2 days, and then I started Flaman Rentals. So that was my little baby. So I started doing marketing on that. And then next thing you know, we started it in November of 1993. That's when Flaman Rentals started.
Oh, cool. And was that like corporate rental equipment, or was that the franchising side of the rentals, like the rental dealer side?
It was a rental dealer side. So we didn't have rentals at any of our own stores. So we actually set up 10 dealers in the course of November 93 to April of 94. We set up 10 rental dealers. And then we owned majority of the equipment. And dealers rented it out, and we had a percentage they got and a percentage we got, and we did that for a year. And then the following year, we set up another 10 dealers, and some of them bought some equipment, so their percentage changed and back and forth. And really, we lost money in the first 2 years, but Frank Flaman always had that line, stick and stay and make it pay. So when you're young and you don't know anything, you don't think about making money. You're just out working. That's all you're doing. And it was like clockwork. In May of 95, we actually did more rentals in the month of May than we did in the first 2 years. It just clicked all of a sudden like that and took off. So, and hence now we have close to 100 locations for Flaman Rentals.
Is there anything that can attest to that big jump? Like, did you guys do something from a marketing standpoint, the sales side? Or what was that attested to?
I think the big thing is awareness. You know, people see Flaman Rentals, they don't understand it. What is it? What do you rent? What do you know? And then as people started renting more and more, neighbors see it. Where do you get that disc from? And it just kind of took off from word of mouth. And now you think about how many customers that we have that are Flaman Rental customers.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it's one of our recognizable names now is Flaman Rentals. So
absolutely,
it's a big business for us.
So what kind of equipment were you renting back then?
Well, we had discs, we had harrows, we had land rollers, rock pickers, stock trailer, a flat deck trailer. That's about it. We didn't have lots, maybe 10, 12 items. Now we got, 80. So there's quite a bit of difference.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm going to go back a little bit. Growing up for you in Radisson, what are some of your earliest memories that you have?
Well, apparently the power went quite a bit out in our house because I have a big family. So there's 5 boys and 3 girls in our family. I'm the youngest boy. And I remember growing up and every day kind of getting beat up by your brothers. And it's like my dad always says it takes 2 to tango. That was a growing up thing there. But it's amazing growing up in a big family. And you support each other and you work together and you become part of the community. So it's was a great way to grow up. Yeah, absolutely, growing up on the farm.
Big farm, mixed farm, grain?
Both.
Yep.
Yeah. Still today, my 2 brothers kind of farm. One brother's mainly farming now. So it's, my dad comes and helps a little bit. So, all pretty good. So,
is agriculture still a part of you? That's something that you'll always keep with?
It'll never go away. Yeah. It'll never go away. And, it's funny. I thought I wanted to be a farmer. And my dad told me, so I took a year off of high school, and my dad was like, okay, well, there's 2 types of people in the world. There's people that give orders and people that take them. He goes, you're not a good listener. You got to go to college. So all those things stem back from my upbringing, though.
Absolutely. So. Hard work.
Yeah. Take care of people.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. How do you instill that into the people that work with you now, and as the organization grows and you bring in new people? Have you ever hired 2 people for the same job and then made them fight it out for a couple of days?
No. We don't do that. That's a Frank Flaman move. Frank has that one patent. But so Frank Flaman gave the company away in August of 2017 to charity. So it's called the Frank J. Flaman Foundation. So we have a board of directors for the foundation, and we have a board of directors to run the company, and then I run the company. And was instilled to me when Frank first gave the company away. He gave me 2 directives, was to give as much money away for as long as you can. So that was, to me, build a strong, safe company of good people, because we're out to do good. Not to do harm, to do good. So the biggest thing to me is people's attitudes. If you have somebody that's willing to work and give it their best every day and are positive, that's the team people that we want to have working for us. So,
and you get a group of individuals like that have the same mantra or attitude, and pretty soon you have a pretty strong culture.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's our strongest suit in our company, is just good people.
Yeah, I get it. How has the business changed since you first started there, when you were interviewing, and where you are now? How have you seen the business progress and evolve over the course of time?
Well, when I started at Flaman's, we're in Leduc, and there were 16 employees, and I was the youngest employee at Flaman's. And that's all there was 16 employees in Alberta.
And just one store,
one store in Leduc. And really all we sold was aeration and bins and a 5-bale carrier from Trail Tech.
Do you remember the employees back then?
All of them.
And are any of them still with us now?
Yes. So Rick Clubb, I think he started when Don Flaman started. So he's up there with Don Flaman. So he's still there. And Everald Olson, he started in 88. And then it would be me in 93. So
when did Don Evans start?
Don Evans started in 6.
Okay, so shortly after. So he's been there for almost original too.
Yeah. So we got a lot of guys that have been there a long time. So Les Paczynski started in 95, Dave Sunley in 96, Ken Bartlett in 99.
And these guys all still work there. They're all, a bunch of them are here today. Yeah, cool.
You know, that's I always say this, though. I said if we can keep people at Flaman's for 2 years, they don't leave. So the first 2 years are always critical, but after 2 years, they fit in the culture, good people, working together. But it takes the first 2
Or they
years.
don't.
Or they don't.
And I think, and I've noticed too, there are certain people that just don't fit in the way Flaman operates. And that doesn't make them bad. And it doesn't make Flaman good or bad either. But I've found in those 2 years, there's often times where people leave in a very amicable way that's just like, this isn't for me. And it's often like, yeah, we know. Like we could just tell. And then what I've also experienced, and more often than not, the people that do fit in, it's like they're home. Like they just found home. And so I actually wouldn't have guessed that there's that many people that work in Flaman, Alberta that are original, because I see those guys all the time. And I guess you think back to the 90s, that was a long time ago, but yeah, they're still there. That's super cool.
Well, not to mention the philosophy with the Frank Flaman Foundation is, you're giving back to the community. So everything that the employees are doing through a given year, it doesn't go to line any ownership pockets. It goes to charity. It helps the community. It helps the common good. And I mean, that's something everyone can rally around.
Can you talk a little bit about the Frank J. Flaman Foundation, what it's all about, when it started, what kind of causes it supports?
Okay, well, so we started it in January 1st of 2006. So that was the starting of the Frank J. Flaman Foundation. And I took over running the company on November 1st, 2005. Now, me and Frank worked pretty good together. So we always made a rule that anything over $500,000, we'd both have to agree on it. And it was pretty easy. We worked very, very well together, and we actually doubled the size of the company in 1 year. Then Frank decided to give $1 million away. And I went, oh my God. I said, worked really hard to get this money, and now you're giving $1 million away. And he says, well, Rock, this is my money. I get to do what I want to do with my money. You get to do what you want to do with your money. And my thing is to make a difference in the world. And that's how the foundation started out. So then we mandated it that we give at least $1 million away every single year, no matter what. And it goes to women, children, world suffering. So really 5 pillars: clean drinking water, food, safety, shelter, and basic education. So that's our focus. Now, when COVID happened over the last few years, we concentrated a lot more in Canada than third world countries, and now we're about 50-50.
Awesome. So if I recall, and I'm assuming it's on the back of the Frank J. Flaman Foundation, but there's a lot of Flaman staff and family members of the Flaman staff that get to go around the world or have been around the world in third world countries. Is that true, or is that accurate?
No, that's very true. So we want buy-in from everyone to understand that they work for a company that's charity. So we started to do a trip every single year, and we take 12 to 14 employees. And they don't take holidays. This is them working. They go down, and we go to Guatemala or Honduras, and we work for a week. So we go down for 10 days, so 1 day traveling there, 1 day traveling back. Then you work for a week, and then we have a day of excursions just at the very end to say, hey, thank you very much, and get to show you the countryside. And I tell you, every single time employees come back from one of these trips, they're changed, knowing that what our company does, and then we're making a difference out there. And that's massive. And employees still talk about today all the trips they went on to. And it's quite amazing. So you think about how much money we've donated since 2006, and I think this year we just passed $23 million.
Wow.
That's unreal.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's like when you look at the motto, people together, doing what's right, making a difference. That making a difference part is maybe not something that all the employees see, especially when you're on the Saskatchewan side, that, yeah, we'll make a difference like at a customer's place, or, somebody who comes in has an issue, we help resolve it, that sort of thing. But making a difference in a different country, different continent, that's something that maybe most employees aren't really aware of.
Yeah, people can grasp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you can you share maybe a couple of like personal stories when you've gone abroad and done the work, like who you've done it for and the impact that you've made?
Well, on the trip I went on, I'll talk about the trip I went to. I went to Peru, and we went to Cusco, Peru, so it's North Lima, about an hour and a half on plane. And when we first got there, you're higher elevations, and so breathing's a little bit hard, so they said don't go running right away. So the next morning I got up, went for a run. I ran for 30 seconds, and I bent over, had trouble breathing. But it's really good for training, I tell you, to go there. But it was very unique. So what we had is a bus, and we went to a little village, and there was a place where there was a girls' shelter, and it was 92 girls that were abandoned, abused, and they were taken care of there. So we decided that we were going to work on this place. This is what was set up to the charity we went through. It's called Vanishing Cultures. And every day, so you get there in the morning and you meet everybody, and then you start working on things and repairing walls to building eaves troughs, which is, you think you'd buy an eaves trough somewhere, but they don't have eaves troughs, so you'd have to make eaves troughs and help them get some food. And the most amazing thing is, so they had rice, and there was mouse turds in the rice, and I was like, holy crap, we got to throw this out. They wouldn't throw it out. They just took the turds out. I said, we can buy you new rice. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we work all day. Then people would drop people off at the hotel at 5 o'clock, and me and a couple other gentlemen that were on the trip, we would go and buy all the supplies that night. And I still remember going to see this one lady, and she must have been 70 years old, and she's selling bricks. And she wanted, I think it was $90, whatever the approved money is, I can't remember, but it was $90, which was like 90 cents to us. And myself is, I always got to see what kind of deal I can get. So I started 90 cents, and I got her down to 20 cents a brick. But then I paid her 90 cents a brick, and she couldn't understand why I was paying her 90 cents a brick. I just wanted to see how cheap I could get it, but I wanted. And she actually slept there where she sold her bricks and stuff like that. And that story was really moving for me, and she couldn't quite understand why I wouldn't pay 20 cents, but I paid the 90 cents. And I just look at how people have it so hard down there compared to what we have. We're so fortunate to live in a country where we have every different temperature in the world, and we can adapt to it. And down there, education is a hard part, because now kids have to work to help the household. And the most unique thing I remember about this trip was after we worked for 7 days on this project for them. So then that night they decided that they want to treat us good. So they got some beer for us, and then guinea pig is a delicacy in Peru. I did not know that. I thought they were a pet, but they're a delicacy. So next thing you know, they come out with a guinea pig, and you can see the eyeballs and skulls and the claws and everything, and it's all out laying on the plate, and you're looking at it, and they go, does it look good? And then you're like, yeah, sure. So then they go into the kitchen. You can hear them cutting it, and bones breaking. And what do they put on my plate? The head. So I tell you what, so I ate that head, and they use the same spices on everything. So we were there for a few more days afterwards, and we went to Machu Picchu and did a little bit of fun stuff. And I tell you, everything had the same kind of spice on it. So I lost probably 15 pounds in 2 days after eating that guinea pig's head. And I tell you, that was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And I'm always thinking that movie, that show, Fear Factor. Yeah. They should put that on there. Nobody's eating that. That's impossible. But the difference we made down there on that trip I went on, and that's my story, is it was unbelievable. And I tell you, at the end of the trip, those 92 girls, we got there in the morning, you would hug every one of them, and you would hug every one of them when you left, and they were just so happy. And to make a difference in somebody's life like that, that's my most memorable trip I've ever went on in my entire life, my favorite trip. That's crazy. So that's pretty amazing.
Awesome. What are some of the stories you have of Frank J. Flaman? I mean, I've never had a chance to meet him. I've heard a lot of different eclectic stories. What's the top of the heap in your memory bank?
Me and Frank, we traveled lots together. Kind of took me under his wing, which was really weird. So when other people ran the company, he always told them that I worked for him directly. So that was always weird, because other people would be the boss, but I worked for Frank. So Frank told me a lot of stories, and we did a lot of things. I remember flying into Chicago O'Hare Airport with Frank when there's Mooney 201.
In his plane.
In his plane. And he's flying, And that's when I decided I got to get my pilot's license. And so we get behind a jet. And now there's another jet right behind us. They just land every 30 seconds, and that's one of the busiest airports in the world. And I'm telling you, so here we are in this little tiny Mooney 201, just landing right in O'Hara. And that was quite interesting. So I learned about traveling with Frank Flaman. So we went and stayed at, I can't remember what hotel we stayed at, and they didn't have a room, so they kind of gave us the meeting room, put 2 cots in it. And so we stayed there for 4 days for a trade show. After that, we went to Logan, Utah. So this was quite unique. So flew into Salt Lake City, go to Logan, Utah. So we're driving the car, and Frank goes, you're speeding too fast. And I go, Frank, I'm not speeding. I'm just driving the same speed as everybody else. Well, you're speeding. So I pull over to the side of the road, open my book in the back, grab a piece of paper, and I put it over the dash. He goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, I don't know how fast I'm going, and you don't know how fast I'm going. So we're going to be fine. We're just going to stay with the traffic. So we get to Logan, Utah. It's quite dark at night, and the banks there look like hotels. So I'm going to tell you this story. So next thing you know, me and Frank get their bags out, and we go park at this hotel, and our bags are black. So we're walking up the door. Next thing you know, this police officer drives on the sidewalk, gun out, drawn, and goes, raise your hands. And it's like, what the heck? So I got my hands raised. Frank doesn't have his raised. I said, Frank, this guy's going to shoot us. Raise your hands. The guy goes, what are you guys doing? I said, well, we're just trying to check into a hotel. It wasn't a hotel. It was Wells Fargo Bank. So quite a unique story. So then we ended up in Logan, Utah. And me and Frank always worked good together. So we were just selling treadmills at that time, and this is 1998. And he says, well, we got to get into ellipticals. That's the new thing. So we went down to, in Logan, Utah, that's where they make Proform ellipticals, and we bought the $595 and the $695, and they're normally selling around $1,000. And this part is not like business today, but at that time they wanted to sell them to us for $400 US. By the time we were done, we were buying them for $150 US. So we knew.
By the time you were done, like negotiating with him,
yes, we bought it for $150, and we bought, I think, 800 ellipticals, which nobody's ever really seen elliptical, and that started out that. So Frank's lines are always, you got to be first to get in. And no, you got to be the first to get in, and then you got to be not the last one to get out. So you want to get out before other people get out. Frank taught me so much in business, and the biggest thing that he taught me is taking care of people. He says, Rocky, I tell you what, never take care of anybody. You know what? Nobody's going to take care of you, but you take care of people, they will take care of you. And that's been driven into me from Frank Flaman.
Yep.
Hands down. Like, he's probably one of the most amazing men I've ever met. Eccentric like crazy. He's a prankster. He would play pranks on you if he could. It didn't matter. One Christmas party, that's what Frank Flaman does. So we have a Christmas party, and next thing you know, somebody says there's somebody in the boot room in there that's not an employee. So I go in there, and the guy's telling me to get out. And it's like, you can't be here. I don't know who you are. Thinking nothing of this, and Frank goes, don't worry about that guy. Don't worry about that guy. So I'm up on the stage talking to all the staff. Next thing you know, this guy comes out, and he starts saying, why don't you shut up? And I'm like, holy smokers. So I'm sitting on a stage in front of 150 employees. This guy comes up. And now he's on the stage, and I'm thinking, well, this is not cool. Like, this guy, we're kind of staring eye to eye. So he's a pretty big guy, and I'm like, this is not cool. But then I find out what Frank bought me for Christmas was a boxing match with the Canadian champion. So I trained for 2 months really hard, and then we had this event in Regina, and we charged employees $10 to come, and we had 150 employees come, and we said we'd match it for charity. So we raised $1,500 there, and plus the company gave $1,500, and I had to box this guy for 3 rounds for 3 minutes. And I tell you what, I got punched 90 times in the head. 90 times. I never punched the guy once. I couldn't hit him. And it was like unbelievable. I'm like, how the heck do I get suckered into this? And I think Frank Flaman, he's the one who did it.
Yeah. All for charity, Rock.
All for charity. All for charity. So like Frank was always a prankster and played games and stuff like that, and treated the staff excellent. And you know what? And I think that's the roots of our business, and the difference that Frank personally made in the world, and then by giving the whole company to charity, I've never heard of somebody doing that before. So that's very impressive.
It's very rare. Have you ever been to the Orient with Frank?
Yeah. I've been to Taiwan with Frank and China with Frank. Quite eccentric, yeah. And I tell you, the things that we used to do, we fly places and you don't book a hotel. So in China, you have to book a hotel, but in Taiwan, you don't. So you fly there, then you find a hotel where you're going to stay, and then you play it all by ear. And I tell you, traveling with Frank has always been interested because you learn so much. And he's very worldly, speaks 3 different languages, and just a treat to travel with. It's always entertaining, always. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's prepared you for anything. So that was pretty cool.
So you were talking about Frank really intentionally caring for people. Can you share how that, or if that translates into the culture of Flaman, or like what, from a foundational standpoint, what does that do for the company or the foundation that you work in now? Like, does that still live in there?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. You know, our goal is to take care of people and take care of our own people too, because sometimes we forget about the people right in front of us. So taking care of our employees is number one, because we always say they're the most important people, and we always ask our employees, who's the most important person? And they'll come up and say the customer, and I'll say, no, it's you. And Frank's always instilled, if you can give your employees 110%, they can give their customers 110%. But you can only give your employees 20%, what are they giving the customers? So that's instilled in us so much that way. And then with watching Frank with different charities and how they come in and sit down and talk to him and spend a few hours with Frank, and next thing you know, he give him $10,000. And Frank always did the grassroots charities, not the big charities, all the ones that are fighting for every dollar they got to, that didn't have any administration expenses, and volunteered their time to make a difference. And those are the ones that hit home to him.
Improve your local community.
Yes.
You see it every day.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like even prior to the foundation, Frank was always a philanthropist. He was always giving stuff to people in need.
Yes, he always donated a lot of money to MCC, Amnesty International, Mother Teresa. He always donated to those charities. And then once we got bigger, we did a lot more. And that's key. We still have probably 60 charities that we have done since 2006. And new ones get added on every year. But there's 60 charities that stay with us every single year. And MCC is one of them.
Very cool.
And when the Ukrainian crisis happened, we donated $100,000 to MCC to help the refugees in Poland.
Oh, very cool.
So switching gears from Rocky within Flamans to Rocky as a person, what are you passionate about? What gets your juices flowing?
Well, a lot of people think it's just work, and work is my hobby. But other things than work, though, skiing, big avid skier. I like skiing. Like being at the cabin, doing lots of outside stuff. So, and like going home back to the farm and helping. So those are kind of my things to do. But I'm a people's person. I always have to be around people. I can't be alone. And I think that's from being from a big family. But I literally can't be alone. I have to be with people all the time.
I was going to say, this is random, maybe a little bit more back to the Frank side, but is there a story about you sleeping on the shop floor for an extended period of time?
Yeah. So when I first started at Flaman's, I was staying at my parents' friend's place on the north side of Edmonton, and it took me half an hour to drive to Leduc every morning. So Frank says, well, why don't you stay here? And I thought, well, if I can stay here, it'd be great, because there's a kitchen and there's a bathroom and there's a shower. So I bought a sleeping bag and a pillow and cleaned one of the offices upstairs and slept on a rug that was on a cement floor for 3 months. And Frank kind of stayed there at the store and slept in his office, so we got to know each other very, very well.
Roommates.
We're roommates, so it's
Roommates and landlords.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
so we got to spend a lot of time together right off the beginning, and I'm a pretty open guy, and so is Frank. So we got to spend a lot of time together, where that made a difference between me and him, because we understood each other. And Frank, we didn't realize this 2 years later, Frank comes from a family of 8 kids too, 5 boys, 3 girls. So that's very unique. And we didn't know that till about 5 years ago. So, and he's the youngest boy too. So
I was going to say, there's a trend today in all the people we've talked about. I was the youngest. Phil's the youngest. You're the youngest. Frank's the youngest. So for what it's worth, like, I think there's some magic about maybe the youngest, like, is the best.
It can be debated.
It's something,
Yeah.
right? It's something.
I don't think the rest of the brothers and sisters will agree with that.
Yeah, probably not.
And yours
No,
either.
and I side with them. I side with
Yeah.
them. Yeah. What are some of your personal goals that you have yet to accomplish that you're really aiming towards?
The biggest thing is to have a strong, safe company that can last forever. That's what Frank wanted. He wanted a company to give as much money to charity for as long as it possibly can. So my goal would be to make sure this company will run forever.
Awesome.
And that's my biggest goal. You know, my personal life, I got lots of goals there too, with family and friends and things I like to do, and do a little bit of traveling, but that will come.
What an amazing story to tell your staff whether you onboard them or the ones that have been there for a number of years, to say we want this company to last forever and continue to give charity away to people.
The biggest thing I find about our company is it's a place that you can start, and I don't care whether you work in the front or in the yard or in sales or in management or accounting or in shipping, you can start there and you can retire there, and that is key. And people want to come to a great company, and our goal is to make it a company where people are fighting to come work for us. And that all starts with attitude and being a great company and making a difference.
Thank you for listening to Flaman Connect. For Mitch Flaman and Regan Kunz, I'm Trevor Grinde. Join us next time. Talk to you soon.